Okay, welcome back. We're reading Genesis chapter 38, King James Version, and the Message in one video. Want to reiterate really fast about my comment from the last video, Genesis chapter 37, where I'm talking about Joseph being my favorite human in the entire Bible. I do realize that Jesus is like the main character here in this whole book and this whole life, but I don't consider him like human like us, like even in this God in a flesh body. It's just not us. That's not us. We're just something else. He is on his own, even in a human body, he is in his own league. So, of course, Jesus is the favorite. He's the star of this whole book. He's the star of this whole story that we call life, for sure. And he 100% deserves it. 100% has earned it. He didn't have to, but he did. So, I just want to make that really clear. When it comes to human beings like me and you, that is not God in a human body, in a flesh body. Joseph is up there. He's like the bee's knees for me, you know? So I'm really excited about getting to this chapter. I'm going to jump right in. This is Genesis chapter 38, King James Version. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned in to a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shelah, and he took her and went into her. And she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Shezib when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said to Onan, Go and to thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass, when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. In the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted, and went up into his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira, the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. She put up her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, sat in the open place, which is by the way of Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned into her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come unto me? he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, wilt thou give me a pledge? Wilt thou send it? And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it to her, and came in to her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adulamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the man of that place, saying, where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And he said, there was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the man of the place that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after, that it was told to Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law has played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burned. When she is brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose these are, I am with child. And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose are those, the signet and bracelets and staff? And Judah acknowledged them and said, she hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass, when she travailed, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out and said, how hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Moving right into the message here. This is Genesis chapter 38, the message. About that time, Judah separated from his brothers and went to stay with a man in Adullam called Hira. While there, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite named Shelah. He married her. They went to bed. She became pregnant and had a son named She got pregnant again and had a son named Onan. She had still another son and named this one Shelah. They were living at Kezib when she had them. Judah got a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn grievously offended God, and God took his life. So Judah told Onan, go and sleep with your brother's widow. It's the duty of a brother-in-law to keep your brother's line alive. But Onan knew that the child wouldn't be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's widow, he spilled his semen on the ground so he wouldn't produce a child for his brother. God was much offended by what he did and also took his life. Judah stepped in and took his daughter-in-law Tamar. Live as a widow at home with your father until my son Shelah grows up. He was worried that Shelah would also end up dead, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live with her father. Time passed. Judah's wife, Shua's daughter, died. When the time of mourning was over, Judah with his friend Hira of Adullam went to Timnah for the sheep shearing. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law has gone to Timnah to shear his sheep." She took off her widow's clothes, put on a veil to disguise herself, and sat at the entrance of Enaim, which was on the road to Timnah. She realized that by now, even though Shelah was grown up, she wasn't going to marry him. Judah saw her and assumed she was a prostitute since she had veiled her face. He left the road and went over to her. He said, "Let me sleep with you." He had no idea she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you pay me?" "I'll send you," he said, "a kid goat from the flock." And she said, "Not unless you give me a pledge until you send it." So, "What would you want in the way of a pledge?" She said, "Your personal seal and cord and the staff you carry." He handed them over to her and slept with her, and she got pregnant. She then left and went home. She removed her veil and put her widow's clothes back on. Judah sent the kid goat by his friend from Adullam to recover the pledge from the woman, but he couldn't find her. He asked the men of that place, "Where's the prostitute that used to sit by the road here near Enaim?" They said, "There's never been a prostitute here." He went back to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her. The men here said there never was a prostitute there." Judah said, "Let her have it then. If we keep looking, everyone will be poking fun at us. I kept my part of the bargain. I sent the kid goat, but I couldn't find her." 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law has been playing the whore, and now she's a pregnant whore." Judah yelled, "Get her out of here, burn her up." As they brought her out, she sent a message to her father-in-law, "I'm pregnant by the man who owns these things. Identify them, please. Who's the owner of the seal and cord of the staff and the staff?" Judah said they were his, and said, "She is in the right, and I am the wrong. I wouldn't let her marry my son Shelah." He never slept with her again. When her time came to give birth, it turned out that there were twins in her womb. As she was giving birth, one put his hand out. The midwife tied a red thread on his hand, saying, "This one came first." But then he pulled it back, and his brother came out. She said, "Oh, a breakout." And so she named him Perez, breakout. Then his brother came out with the red thread on his hand. They named him Zerah, bright. I'm not going to take forever on this one. This is just, again, I'm just, yikes, They're selling Joseph, little 17-year-old Joseph that didn't do anything away. Not really sure. Not really sure what's going on with that. He's the blameless one here, apparently. Judah, which I'm sorry and ashamed to say, Judah, that he kind of went away from his brothers. He strayed away from the family. He went to some Canaanite land, got a Canaanite woman, had kids with her. And it just kind of, his family life just kind of went wrong there. Now, this could easily be interpreted as something like, oh, well, he's not marrying of his own people, and that's why it didn't work out. But I think it's a little deeper than that. It kind of almost seems to me, and this is just my interpretation, it kind of almost seems as if he strayed from God. That's what it looks like to me, more than it is he strayed from his own people and whatnot. I mean, they already had a thing, this family line had a thing against Canaanite women specifically. Because they don't walk with God, these people. I mean, maybe some of them know God, but they're not really God-fearing and God-serving. So he just gets with a woman. He leaves his family, gets with a woman from this place that they know that most of them don't walk with God. They have their own rituals and culture and whatever. And so he gets tied up, soul tied, has a family with someone like that. And also, like, no offense, but just a chapter ago, these brothers were doing another brother absolutely dirty. So I'm sure this is in some way, we're going to put that in quotation, karma coming back, in his own life for what he did to somebody else and tried to, sweep it under the rug. You can't ever sweep things under the rug when you do people wrong. It has to come back to you. Doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. God sees everything, and he is the one to take vengeance and create justice. It's not for us to necessarily do. God will do that himself. And this is kind of a perfect example of that. He did dirty his own family, swept it under the rug, and went about his life as if he didn't just sell his brother because he was jealous. And then he went and strayed from God completely and just kind of went to these other people that don't fear God and just create a family out of that. I don't know. Just seems a lot of like there's really lost there, strayed for sure. And so he has these children, and the first one, he gets a wife for the first one, And it just says that he just wasn't of a man of God. He just was very displeasing of God. In fact, let me just get the exact words. I'm going to look up the King James Version. It says in verse 7 of chapter 38 of Genesis, and Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. God just wasn't having it. Whatever the guy had done, he was wicked, and God just wasn't having it. It goes for anybody these days. If you're wicked, God sees all that. Be careful, because whatever you think you're getting away with, or whatever you think you're doing and that nobody knows about, or that you think you can just continue doing, God is, be careful, just be careful about all that. There's a reason why it's a better idea to walk with him and walk in his ways or something, in that vicinity, giving it your best effort. But I digress. He died, God took him out. So then Judah has the second born son, get with her, because he's got to continue the bloodline, I guess, for his brother. It's just a lot of confusion there. He says this is just kind of a tradition type of thing. I don't even want to misquote him, but I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Let me see. He just says in verse 8, and Judah said to Onan, this is the second son, go in to thy brother's wife and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. I mean, I suppose it's kind of a tradition or something, not to leave that woman unprotected and widowed. I mean, women just don't really have a lot of power in this time. They're just kind of objects, usually sexual objects, it looks like, which is a shame, because the original design of a woman in the Garden of Eden was not about that. This is just an abusive way to treat women now, since, the fall of man and getting kicked out of Eden. It's like, to me, I consider this kind of a sinful way to treat and view a woman, because woman was not viewed this way in the Garden of Eden when she was with Adam. She was like an equal or something to him in some way, or counterpart, a helpmate. She wasn't this sexual thing to just produce babies and to sleep with, like, I don't know. Women just weren't that. Whatever these men at this point are treating women like, out in the fallen world. it's just not the real purpose of a woman, you know? It's just not. Yeah, we're meant to reproduce and all of that, but it's just really abused by men. And I just refuse, based on how God had presented Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, I refuse to believe that this version that men are doing in the book of Genesis outside of that is the real purpose of a woman. But considering that these men are doing this, I mean, they're not, he's like, you know, get with your brother's wife so that she's just not like widowed and, you know, out on the street and don't have anyone to look after her, take care of her, because women don't have any power. They don't. So they're just almost like property or something. Anyway, he doesn't want to do it. This Onan second son, he don't want to do it. So I guess he's sleeping with her, and then, for lack of a better way to say it, he's doing the whole pull out thing, which is, you know, the visuals of this stuff. As I said, I'm not really a fan of like sexual immorality and stuff. I just really don't like that stuff. I think it's just one of the grossest things in life. It's just people being irresponsible sexually and just being really lusty and just ew, you know. I just don't like that stuff. It's disgusting. And apparently God don't like it either, because he took that son out too. So now all that's left is the youngest one, Shelah. And so the father, Judah's scared now. He's like, oh, two of my sons got took out. And it almost looks like he's blaming the woman as opposed to his sons just not being men of God. Crazy how that happens. Because it's not the woman's fault at all. She's not doing anything. So it almost seems like he's putting the blame on her anyway. Says nothing about his own sons doing wrong. And now he's trying to protect the third son. He promises it to her. He reneges on that promise, obviously, because the child grows up and he's a man, and she still isn't with him. And so she just takes matters into her own hands. She's tired. I get it. She's a human being, man, and they're treating her like crap. She's had a really hard life, obviously. And nobody wants to be treated like property or some sexual object and stuff. Nobody wants that. Like, that's... I don't care if you're a man or a woman. Nobody wants to be a thing, you know, with no power, with no control, even over what happens in their own life. And so she took matters in her own hands. What she did wasn't right, acting like a harlot. And then Judah's taking the bait. Ew, his wife dies. And so I guess, you know, he doesn't have a woman anymore. But in reality, then go find yourself another wife. Now that your wife is dead, go get another one. Instead, he's like bargaining to sleep with someone. Ew. Everything about this is gross. So I'm just going to expedite this because I'm sorry. I'm just not a big fan at all of people using their bodies like this. I just think it's just really wrong. It's just so wrong. I don't like it. So I'm going to fast forward. He gets with her, whatever. She tricks him and gets his signet because, you know, she's trying to make sure he doesn't play her. Already played her. So she's pregnant 3 months later. And, you know, he looked for her, couldn't find the harlot or whatever, the prostitute that he thought, you know, he'd made a deal with. And turns out, you know, as soon as he finds out that the daughter-in-law is pregnant and things, this is many years she's been waiting, obviously. I mean, that kid grew up, the third kid grew up. And he's like, oh, burn her. He's like ready to kill her and destroy her. And she brings out the signet and she's like, I'm pregnant by this guy that gave me these things. And that dude got humbled real fast. He was like, oh, she's more righteous than me because I lied to her. Oh, but it was like you had to get caught in your lie in order to have any kind of honor. That's kind of crazy. But I find that a lot of people are like that, like in today's time even. You know, you got to get caught before you can do the right thing or try to at least scrounge up whatever's left of doing the right thing. I don't really have much to say about this stuff. She had his twins. So she had her father-in-law's twins. Ew. Just so much is going on. It's so gross. But I don't blame that lady, except the fact that she shouldn't have done that. But I get it. The desperation, man. She's childless. She's husbandless. Her husbands are dying. Nobody wants to be with her. Her father-in-law's lying to her. She's wasting away like a piece of property. Nobody wants to have an existence like that. Nobody wants that. So I understand. But what she did was wrong, but I understand. I get it. Like, she got desperate. So, She wanted some meaning to her life. That was actually something that she wanted, something that she could enjoy. So she's got her twin sons. The way she went about it was gross, but, says that he never slept with her again. No, you shouldn't sleep with her again. Shouldn't have slept with her first time. But, people make mistakes, but this is all could have been avoided. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this story. It's gross. That red ribbon tied on the firstborn's hand that came out. Isn't that funny? I wear this for a completely different reason, and maybe I'll tell you the reason behind it. It is God-related for sure. It's Jesus-related, actually. And so it's an interesting story how I got this, and then that I wear it a lot. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about this. I was hoping to read about Joseph. I forgot all about this chapter. Probably I blacked it out because, as you can see, the contents of it, it's just of a type of subject that I'm not fond of and that I avoid because I don't want nothing to do with none of that type of activity. I don't know, just had like a situation with a maintenance man yesterday that was talking to me about like Bill Clinton and how men need that in order to succeed and stuff, and it was just gross. Ew. I mean, guys telling themselves all the time, people do, should I say, people telling themselves all the time, really where they're at spiritually. And I was just looking at this guy like, this was so unprofessional, who says this to somebody that, you're getting paid to do work here. And who says that in the middle of doing their work? Like, I guess if you live in the world, maybe that is normal banter, but it just doesn't even seem like normal banter for a man to be speaking to a woman that he doesn't really know about that. And, I spoke to somebody else about that. They're like, well, maybe he was just interested in you. Well, I'm not interested back. That's really gross. I don't really have too much else to say about that stuff. I'm not a sexual person in those ways. God says that stuff is wrong. I 100% agree with him. It just causes a lot of trouble and grief. It's a lot of soul ties. It could be a lot of STDs. It could be a lot of children out of wedlock, children in messed up situations that is not a good start for them. There's just so many reasons why it's wrong. And I don't think that a real man, I'm going to put this out there for the men that read along these Bible studies with me. I know there are men out there. I know there are a lot of you guys out there that aren't like that. I know that. There are a lot of you guys out there that aren't like, well, we need to do this. We're just men, so we've got to do that. No, you don't have to do that. There's a lot of men out there that have a lot more dignity and honor and virtue about that sort of thing. And they don't do that, and they're not compelled to do that. They actually have self-control and a heart and, as I said, honor. It's gross. That's gross. I mean, I'm sorry to tell you, that's one of the most unattractive things that you could do as a man to me is just be so sexually fluid and just so out there with your body, just giving it in such disgraceful ways, just, I'm sorry. If you don't want me to be interested in you, that is what all you need to do is just be irresponsible sexually with your own body and blame it on the fact that you're a man. So that's why you do it. You can leave, I don't even know. Like, maybe I'd be your friend, but to be honest, what's the point? Like, I don't share those principles and I don't believe in that stuff. You're either, strong enough to have control over yourself to make more responsible choices, or you don't. And if you're a man of God, you certainly should be able to do that. Or get yourself into a mess like this guy Judah did, Ew. Or his father. I mean, and that's the thing, too, is, I'm sorry, they didn't have a good example of a father. So, of course, there's generational things, where like father, like son type thing, unless the son is consciously, really, truly walking with God and resisting all that evil stuff, resisting all that crooked, nasty stuff, and changing, breaking the pattern of, generational curses, if you will. You don't have to do the stuff that your parents did, or your grandparents or whatever it is. You don't have to do that stuff if they did that stuff. You can do different. It's up to you to choose, and you don't have to do it alone. You can ask God for help if it's really something that you struggle with, and that goes for really anything in life. It doesn't have to just be sexual things. It's anything in life. Like, if you have parents that are known to be alcoholics and stuff, or you just have a long family line of alcoholics, you don't have to be an alcoholic. If you have a long family line of divorce or having kids out of wedlock and never marrying, you don't have to go that route. You don't have to do that. You can ask God for help and he will help you. So I say all that to say, just really if you're walking with God, you become a lot more conscious of things like that. It doesn't mean that you're going to live this perfect, blameless life or whatever. Nobody can do that but Jesus Christ. He's the only one that was able to fulfill the law. And through that perfection, he was able to take the brunt of our inability to do that. So, I'm not here to tell you to be perfect, but you don't have to be that reckless. That's just a mess. Whatever my boy Judah got himself into there, which could have all been avoided had he been walking with God. And if you notice, God was only mentioned in this when it came down to God just being so displeased and having to take people's lives, take them out the whole thing, the story. So that's all I got to say about that. I'm going to close this chapter out. I'm looking forward to next chapter. Maybe we'll be talking about Joseph, because that's my boy. He does not do things like this. He is a great example of a man who is walking with God, that things like this just do not happen to him. He is not for that. He is 100% against that. That junk is gross to him, just like it's gross to me. And he's a man, so keep that in mind. I feel bad for young men and boys and things that grow up listening to that stuff, of this enabling of, well, he's a man, so, he can be reckless sexually because they need it. Everybody, quote unquote, needs it or wants it or desires it. Most people do. So you can talk about how different it is for a man than for a woman, whatever. If you're walking with God, you're not going to be reckless like that as a man with your body. You're not going to do that. There are plenty of men out there, even today, and they don't get as much props as they should, but there's plenty of men out there that actually wait and save themselves for marriage so that they can give the gift of themselves, their love, their body, to their wife. There are men out there that actually do that. And there's nothing wrong with them or their bodies. They're just honorable people, probably walking with God, and not using excuses that society makes for them to go and do whatever to their imagination. I'm one of the people out there in the world that does not fall for, oh, he's a man. I don't care. Be a man. Be a real man. And have some self-control and honor. It's up to you, though. So, let this chapter resonate with anyone who wants to. I got to get up out of here because I don't like this stuff, like I said. I pray you guys have a blessed day. I'm looking forward to chapter 39. Hopefully, we're going to get back to Joseph. I'm not even going to peek at it until tomorrow. I'm praying, God, let it be about Joseph so that we can get some good examples on how to live as a man or a woman, just as a human being. He's just a really good example in this book. So, I pray you guys have a blessed day. I pray this word meant something to you, reached you in your soul in a special way. I'd love to hear about the things that stood out to you about this chapter. You can leave your comments below if you like. And on that note, God bless you. I love you. Bye.